When the Galactic Confederation first encountered humans, they dismissed them as just another primitive species struggling to reach the stars. A curiosity, perhaps, but nothing more. After all, Earth was classified as a Class II death world, a planet so hostile that most species would find it uninhabitable. High gravity, extreme temperature variations, aggressive predators, and an atmosphere that would be toxic to many galactic citizens. The Confederation's initial assessment was simple. The humans will either destroy themselves or remain confined to their solar system for centuries to come. How wrong they were. The first diplomatic meeting between humanity and the Confederation took place aboard the massive Confederation vessel Eternal Wisdom. The human representatives arrived in what the aliens considered little more than a primitive shuttle, a vessel that relied on chemical propulsion and crude radiation shielding. The Confederation diplomats struggled to hide their amusement. "Welcome," said High Chancellor Zex Taro, his translucent skin shifting through patterns of formal greeting. "We are pleased to welcome Earth into the galactic community. Though we understand your technological limitations may make full participation challenging." The human ambassador, Dr. Elena Martinez, smiled politely. "We appreciate your welcome, High Chancellor. Humanity is eager to learn and contribute." Contribute? The Chancellor's skin rippled with what humans would later learn was the equivalent of laughter. "Perhaps in time. For now, we offer protection and guidance." What the Confederation failed to understand was that humans had evolved on a world that demanded adaptation. Where most species in the galaxy had developed on worlds with stable conditions, allowing for specialized evolutionary paths, humans had faced an ever-changing environment that required flexibility, creativity, and an almost irrational persistence. The terms offered to humanity were, by Confederation standards, generous. Earth would receive basic technological assistance, protection from hostile species, and limited trading rights. In exchange, the Confederation would have exclusive mining rights to Earth's asteroid belt and outer planets. The human delegation requested time to consider the offer. This confused the Confederation representatives. What was there to consider? The humans should be grateful for such terms. 3 standard months later, the humans returned with their answer. "We appreciate the Confederation's offer," Dr. Martinez stated, "but we must respectfully decline these specific terms. We propose instead a more equitable arrangement." The Confederation diplomats were stunned. No species had ever rejected their initial terms. It simply wasn't done. "You decline?" Chancellor Zex Toral's skin turned a deep purple of confusion. "Perhaps you misunderstand your position. The Confederation spans thousands of worlds. Our technology is millennia beyond yours. We offer protection from threats you cannot comprehend." Dr. Martinez nodded. "We understand completely, Chancellor, and we look forward to a productive relationship with the Confederation. But it must be one of mutual respect." The humans presented their counter-proposal. They would join the Confederation as a probationary member, with full voting rights to be granted within 20 standard years. Mining rights would be shared, with Earth retaining primary authority over its solar system. And most importantly, Earth would maintain an independent defense force. This last point caused the greatest controversy. Member worlds were protected by the Confederation fleet. Maintaining separate military forces was seen as unnecessary and potentially destabilizing. "Why would you need your own military when the Confederation provides protection?" asked Admiral Vorntal, the military representative. "Cultural reasons," Dr. Martinez replied simply. "Humanity has always valued self-determination. We wish to contribute to Confederation security, not merely benefit from it." After much debate, a compromise was reached. Earth would be allowed a ceremonial defense force, limited to its immediate solar system. The Confederation representatives considered this a diplomatic victory. They had granted a minor concession while maintaining the essence of their authority. What they didn't realize was that humans had never intended to build a large fleet immediately. They wanted something far more valuable: time, and knowledge. Over the next 15 years, Earth became an enthusiastic member of the galactic community. Human representatives attended every Confederation assembly, asked countless questions, and volunteered for even the most menial committees. Human students flocked to Confederation universities, absorbing knowledge at a rate that impressed even the most scholarly species. The Confederation saw this as the natural enthusiasm of a young species, eager to catch up to their betters. They failed to notice the pattern in human interests: energy systems, materials science, propulsion technology, and communications. They dismissed the human obsession with efficiency as a quirk of a species from a resource-limited world. Most importantly, they overlooked humanity's greatest strength, their ability to look at established systems and ask, but what if we did it differently? 17 years after first contact, the Vexcar incursion began. The Vexcar were not members of the Confederation. They were a highly aggressive species from the galactic rim who had developed FTL travel independently. Their first attack destroyed 3 Confederation outposts before a response could be organized. The Confederation fleet mobilized, but the Vexcar employed hit-and-run tactics that frustrated conventional military responses. Their ships would appear, attack, and vanish before significant forces could engage them. The Confederation, used to fighting set-piece battles with clearly defined fronts, struggled to adapt. 3 months into the conflict, the Vexcar battle group entered the Sol system, Earth's home. The small Confederation detachment assigned to Earth retreated, following standard protocol when faced with superior numbers. They sent urgent messages to the nearest Confederation fleet, but help would take days to arrive. The Confederation expected the humans to panic. Instead, they received a calm message. Confederation allies, we appreciate your concern. Please be advised that Sol system defense is now active. Human forces will engage the Vexcar threat. Admiral Vorntal, now commanding the nearest response fleet, was alarmed. The humans have no significant military vessels. They must evacuate while they can. What happened next would change the Confederation's understanding of humanity forever. As the Vexcar fleet approached Earth, they encountered no resistance. Sensors showed only civilian stations and the expected planetary defense satellites. Nothing that posed a threat to their warships. The Vexcar commander, confident in an easy victory, ordered his forces to advance at full speed. That's when the mines activated. Not conventional explosive devices, but something the humans called gravity mines. Small, stealth devices that created localized distortions in space-time. The Vexcar ships, traveling at high velocity, couldn't adjust in time. 3 of their vessels were torn apart by sudden gravitational shears. 2 more collided when their navigation systems failed. The remaining Vexcar ships slowed and regrouped, now advancing cautiously. That's when the second surprise was revealed. The civilian stations around Earth's orbit began to transform. Sections that appeared to be habitation modules, reconfigured into weapon platforms. Solar collection arrays pivoted to reveal missile launchers. Every human orbital facility was, in fact, a disguised weapons platform. The Vexcars still outnumbered the human defenses, but now they faced an actual fight. They pressed their attack, confident in their superior technology. Then came the third surprise. From Earth's moon, previously thought to house only mining operations and research facilities, launched hundreds of small craft. Too small to be proper warships, these vessels were barely larger than shuttles. The Confederation had classified them as orbital maintenance vehicles when the humans had started building them years earlier. These small craft swarmed the Vexcar vessels. They didn't attempt to attack directly. Instead, they attached themselves to the hulls of the larger ships. Once attached, they began drilling through the outer armor. The Vexcar, faced with this unprecedented tactic, didn't know how to respond. Their point defense systems were designed to intercept missiles and energy weapons, not small craft that moved like space debris until the last moment. By the time the Confederation fleet arrived, the battle was over. The Vexcar fleet had been decimated, with the few surviving ships in full retreat. Admiral Vorntal's flagship established communication with Earth's Defense Command. "This is unexpected," the Admiral admitted. "How did you defeat a force of that size?" The human commander, General Sarah Chen, appeared on the communication screen. "We observed that conventional space combat follows predictable patterns. The Vexcar, like the Confederation, rely on large vessels with standardized defense systems. We simply developed approaches those systems weren't designed to counter." "But your defense force was supposed to be ceremonial," protested the Admiral. General Chin smiled. "And it is. We have no large warships, as specified in our agreement. We simply made our civilian infrastructure more versatile." This incident marked a turning point in how the Confederation viewed humanity. What had seemed like human eagerness to learn was revealed as a systematic analysis of Confederation technology and tactics, not to copy them, but to identify their weaknesses and develop countermeasures. The ceremonial defense force had never built traditional warships because humans had recognized they couldn't match Confederation shipbuilding capacity. Instead, they had developed asymmetric capabilities, gravity mines that used the enemy's speed against them, disguised weapons platforms that enemies wouldn't target until it was too late, and boarding craft that bypassed shields entirely. In the following years, the Vexcar incursion was repelled, due in no small part to human tactical innovations that were gradually adopted by Confederation forces. Humanity was granted full membership in the Confederation ahead of schedule, and Earth's defense methodologies became a subject of intense study at the Confederation Military Academy. But this was just the beginning of humanity's rise. 25 years after first contact, a human physicist named Dr. Sanjay Patel presented a paper at the Confederation Science Symposium that caused an uproar. He proposed a fundamental revision to the unified field theory that had been the basis of Confederation FDL travel for millennia. "Your current approach to faster-than-light travel is elegant," Dr. Patel explained to the skeptical audience. "But it contains inefficiencies that can be eliminated." The Confederation's leading physicists dismissed his work as the misunderstanding of a primitive species. The equations had been refined over thousands of years by the greatest minds in the galaxy. What could a human possibly contribute? 6 months later, Dr. Patel and his team unveiled a working prototype of what they called a slip drive, an FTL system that required 40% less energy than conventional Confederation drives, while achieving 30% greater speeds. The Confederation's scientific community was forced to reevaluate their dismissal. Upon closer examination, they discovered that Dr. Patel hadn't rejected their fundamental theories. He had simply approached them from a different angle, questioning assumptions that had become so ingrained that no one thought to examine them anymore. In this case, they managed to elicit an effort-level increase of doubt about the theories. We had faced 2 difficult years of profound. This pattern repeated itself across multiple fields. Human medical researchers developed treatments for conditions the Confederation had considered chronic but manageable. Human engineers created materials with properties that Confederation science had deemed theoretically impossible. Human psychologists offered insights into cross-species communication that revolutionized diplomatic protocols. In each case, the breakthrough came not from superior human intelligence or knowledge, but from the human tendency to question established wisdom and approach problems from unexpected directions. 50 years after first contact, humanity had become an integral part of the Confederation. Human innovations had been incorporated into countless aspects of galactic life. Human cultural exports, music, art, literature, cuisine, had spread throughout Confederation space, often adapted to suit the sensibilities of different species. But the true test of humanity's place in the galaxy came with the emergence of the Void Collective. Unlike the Vexcar, who were merely aggressive, the Void Collective represented an existential threat to all life in the galaxy. They weren't a species but an ideology, a cult that believed consciousness itself was an aberration in the universe and that all sentient life should be extinguished to return the cosmos to its natural state of unconscious matter and energy. What made the Void Collective truly dangerous was that they recruited from within Confederation society. Anyone could be converted to their nihilistic philosophy. Their agents infiltrated governments, military organizations, and key infrastructure. They employed biological weapons, targeted assassinations, and mass casualty attacks. Conventional military responses proved ineffective against this distributed threat. The Confederation, built on principles of open exchange and cooperation, found itself vulnerable to an enemy that exploited those very values. In this darkest hour, it was humanity that proposed a solution. The Void Collective believes that consciousness is unnatural, explained Dr. Elena Martinez, now serving as Earth's representative to the Confederation Security Council. We propose to show them just how natural it is. The human plan was audacious. They had been secretly developing a technology they called the Consensus Network, a system that allowed for direct mind-to-mind communication across vast distances. Unlike crude telepathy, which some species possess naturally, this was a technological solution that could work for any sentient being. We don't propose to link everyone's minds permanently, Dr. Martinez clarified, seeing the alarm on many council members' faces. But in moments of crisis, the ability to share thoughts, emotions, and intentions instantly could counter the Void Collective's advantage of secrecy and deception. The proposal was controversial. Many species had cultural or religious taboos against such intimate mental contact. Others feared that humanity was attempting to establish some form of galactic mind control. We understand your concerns, Dr. Martinez acknowledged. That's why Earth will demonstrate the technology first. We invite representatives from all Confederation species to observe. 100 human volunteers, including high-ranking government officials and military officers, participated in the first public demonstration of the Consensus Network. For 6 hours, they remained linked, solving complex problems presented by the Confederation observers. They demonstrated that individuals retained their autonomy while gaining access to the collective knowledge and perspectives of all participants. Most convincingly, they showed that deception was impossible within the network. Thoughts and intentions were transparent to all participants. A Void Collective infiltrator could not hide their true agenda when directly linked to other minds. Gradually, other species began to participate in limited consensus events. The technology was refined to accommodate different neural structures and cognitive patterns. Safeguards were implemented to protect privacy and prevent misuse. When the Void Collective launched a coordinated attack against the Confederation capital world, a consensus was established among key military and security personnel. The collective intelligence of thousands of minds, representing dozens of species, identified patterns and connections that would have taken conventional analysis weeks to discover. The Void Collective's attack was not just repelled. Their entire network was exposed and dismantled in a single coordinated operation across hundreds of worlds. In the aftermath, the Confederation underwent a transformation. The Consensus Network, used judiciously and with appropriate safeguards, became a tool for addressing the most complex challenges facing galactic civilization. Environmental crises, resource conflicts, and diplomatic impasses that had persisted for centuries were resolved through the combined insights of diverse minds working in perfect coordination. 100 years after first contact, humanity had risen from a curiosity to a cornerstone of galactic civilization, not through conquest or domination, but through their unique ability to question, adapt, and imagine alternatives to established ways of thinking. Chancellor Zexteral, now in the twilight of his long life, reflected on that first meeting with the humans a century earlier. "We thought we were welcoming a primitive species that would learn from our wisdom," he told the Confederation Assembly. Instead, they taught us that wisdom itself is not a destination, but a journey. They reminded us that the greatest strength is not in having all the answers, but in never stopping asking questions. The humans, for their part, continued to explore, innovate, and occasionally confound their galactic neighbors. They established colonies on worlds other species considered uninhabitable. They developed art forms that combined elements from dozens of alien cultures. They continued to propose theories and technologies that initially seemed impossible, until they demonstrated otherwise. But perhaps their greatest contribution was something less tangible. They brought a renewed sense of possibility to a civilization that had begun to stagnate under the weight of its own history and traditions. As Dr. Martinez, now well into her second century thanks to Confederation medical technology, often said, "The stars are not our destination, they are merely the beginning." And so humanity continued its rise to greatness, not alone but hand in hand or tentacle or claw with the myriad species of the galaxy, all of them reaching together toward a future limited only by their collective imagination. The destiny of humanity, it turned out, was not to conquer the stars, but to help all sentient life see them as new and ever-evolving.